Good morning. Today we got us a used alternator, a Bosch alternator, 80 amps from eBay. We winded up paying $54 for this puppy here with shipping, and that had a tag on it. I guess that came from somewhere else. They wanted $210 for that. Before we get into the alternator, I want to show you actually the bracket, and this is something I've seen virtually on every Mercedes-Benz which uses the system, and explain this real quick on how this works. This screw usually, or bolt, has these little notches going out straight, and you can see this here. This one is bent, but the rest of them are still good. And what most people who don't know anything about Mercedes-Benz wind up doing when they do a service is there is 3 bolts associated with this. This here is one that has a nut on the other side, and then it holds it onto the other bracket. This one here goes actually through the alternator and mounts on the engine block. And then there's one more hole here on this side, which also mounts into the engine block. Before you can either adjust it, either tighten or loosen it, you need to loosen all 3 bolts up that they're moving freely. All 3 nuts have to be loosened. And then you can apply a wrench here on this here, and you can then just simply turn this, and it will either loosen the tension or increase the tension when it works properly. Once you got your tension set, you tighten the nut here on this side, which is this nut here. You tighten this up first. This will hold it in place. And then you tighten this nut up here for this bolt, and the other one which is down here. And then you have your alternator back in place. If you're trying to adjust this with the other 2 bolts still tightened up, this is going to be the result that you screw up the screw and you disform the bracket. Mercedes-Benz no longer makes them, and this is crucial to properly tension the system. I wanted to mention this first because a lot of people are watching this and they're dropping out. Now to this puppy here, that we got a real beauty here. This is a Bosch Premium, which means it is one of the newer ones. And it's an aftermarket, or not Mercedes-Benz part. But we have the original Bosch numbers in here. So it was made in Germany. And you have the Bosch number right here. What you're looking at with the rust here, this is a typical situation. You have this inside, you have it on the outside, you have the paint coming off. It's called degreaser. And this is when people trying to get their engine sparkling clean, they spray everything down with the engine degreaser, and then they either go over with water or hot pressure, and that will destroy the protective coating on those. And this is what this looks like. It will rust everywhere. It will damage it. I cleaned this off a little bit, and that's how you wind up with an alternator looking like this. To rebuild this basically is you start with this nut, you take this off. The way this sits on here is actually quite simple. You have a hex key in here, and you can use a 23 millimeter and then just counteract it and you will get it off. If you don't have a 23 millimeter which will fit in here, you can just simply use a impact wrench and start holding the fan and this fan blade here or the pulley, and just starting to impact it out, and that will come right out. Then you need a puller to pull this off. That comes off this shaft, and then this will come just out. Now the interesting thing is, this thing did not have a wood-off key in it, and I'm in the process of getting that stuck washer off so I can actually pull off the bearing. And this is now the Bosch unit, so either that was rebuilt and they didn't put the wood-off key in there. The wood-off key holds this washer here, which is in between the fan and the pulley, and then the fan blade itself. And you can see this. If you put engine degreaser on there, like I said, everything is going to start to rust on you. The other thing is what I also found very interesting is our bearings here. Now you can read it because I got the stuff in here, but you can read it real nice, and it's on both sides the same. They are China. So this can't be very old, and this is a 5201 RS. I think it's an RS, yeah. And on the other side is, let me get a rag, and then we're gonna wipe this off. So that's why I said is it is actually better if you're gonna rebuild your own unit. If it is not too bad, I will point out a couple more things here in a minute, and it really doesn't take much. Here you can see it now. Let me zoom in. I have to zoom back. This is a 6303 China. Wait, yeah. PLD. 6303 PLD or PLC. These are the two bearings which are in there. You can get any air bearing which has those numbers. I would put high grade bearings in there. They have actually lasted pretty well. But you could use also better units. And now let's see. The way this then comes out is you have this removed. You pull this off, you tap this off with a hammer, and at that point that coil system is going to come loose. You want to keep this basically in the lower unit, and then most likely the anchor is going to be stuck in here in that plastic guide, and you have to tap this out from the rear here to get onto in between here where the brushes are normally. And then you can just tap this out, and then the anchor comes out, and then you can take the whole thing out basically as you can see it here on the table. Now, what I also found on this unit here is this is the three-phase rectifier. This is a three-phase generator. And you can see this, we have a total of 4 wires here. These are the 3 phases, and that's the neutral. They're utilizing a Y connection for those who are familiar with 3-phase systems. These are the diodes all involved, these little dots in here. These are all diodes, rectifier diodes, and the plus output unregulated comes out here. And you can see this, when you replace the voltage regulator, you want to make sure that this pickup, which is in a pretty poor shape, is also cleaned up, because that makes contact with this part right here on your voltage regulator. And they put a no name or no unmarked voltage regulator in here, which still has pretty good brushes available. And that means that this thing, even though it is totally rusted up, is in a pretty bad shape. You can see the connections here on how bad that actually looks like it, you know. This is pretty corroded, and this is the type of corrosion, like I said, is you get from engine cleaner, engine degreaser, any type of engine degreaser. The other thing is on the anchor itself, what is good are the collectors actually. You can see this, that they have virtually no wear marks. So this is a highly usable part, even though the whole unit looks pretty bad and it is rebuildable. You want to check the internal coils to see if the coating is still on there. There is a coating on these coils, and that is a clear coat, and that clear coat tends to break off when there's heat and it's starting to decay. And in this point here, I cannot see this anywhere happening. Oops, here comes the regulator, no, the rectifier unit. So there might be a little spot here. This is, no. So this coil is actually in a good shape. That just needs to be cleaned. You can repaint this. It is probably a good idea also at this point to get a new, see now the unzooming doesn't work. It works at times and then it doesn't. There we go. And these can be replaced. You can buy those. I would buy only a quality part. This is an additional heatsink here. And let me just show you this to see on how this actually sits on here. When you mount this, see this contact here? This is actually better when we zoom in. Now it won't, because my fingers are dirty. The iPhone will not allow me to do the thing here. Okay, we're out of luck. My hands are too dirty. And that just fits on here like this. And this is where it makes the contact. So besides of making contact here with the collector, this is basically how this sits in here. Making the Bosch contact here like this. See this? Oops. It just does it. See, when they wear out, they make a bad contact here. So this has to be cleaned. This you can actually clean up real easy by taking like 1 mil or so off the copper on a lathe. So you get a real smooth and even surface that both of these rings, copper rings, have the same diameter. Any machine shop can do this. That will work quite well. And then if you have something like this, you just replace the rectifier unit. And the way that works is quite simple, as they're just soldered in there. You probably need a 50 to 100 watt solder iron to loosen these wires up, and they will fit right in there. If you solder this, use 6337 with flux, the rosin-based flux, RMA flux. That will give you the best connection on this. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull off this here, then I'm going to pull off this, then I'm going to bring this thing down to Martin, to his shop, and we're going to do this down there. That might be then video too. I have to talk to Martin to see if he can squeeze me in there, and then see if we can get that restored. One thing which is a little bit bad here is you can see the nut itself, the thread is kind of damaged, but it will hold the nut basically in far enough. I probably gonna get new hardware for this. The easiest way to get actually all the Phillips screws removed is by using good old WD-40 gel lube. That works the best. On the back side of it, you can see I got this on here. And then I use the impact, this here, the old Milwaukee, in the reverse, set at about 6 to 8. This gives it the impact action it needs, and they will come more or less right out. Make sure you press the drill all the way down so you don't strip out the screws. They're very difficult to get out once they're stripped. If this happens on those long ones, cut them with a die grinder on this side, because they're screwed into the lower base. And if you cut them up here, then you will have them sticking out at the lower base, and you can grab them on with a pair of pliers or a grab tool, a vice grip, and then turn them out after soaking them from the inside too with WD-40 with this stuff here, and then they come out. But if you soak it first and you use an impact and you put the full pressure on the screw head, pushing against it, then it will hammer itself out. So this is now part 1 to the alternator rebuild, and we will be able to salvage this unit for $54. I'm probably gonna spend another $100 or more in parts. That's a new voltage regulator. We're gonna have Martin machine this part down. We're just gonna take 1 or 2 mil off. That's 1/1000th of an inch or 2/1000th of an inch at the very most. And we get a new rectifier assembly, and then new hardware, bolts and new bearings. And I'm probably gonna go with SKF or NSK bearings. I will see something which lasts longer. You want them sealed and lubricated, permanently lubricated, and as higher quality they are, as longer they will last. This is usually the part which goes out. High mileage is the bearings. And the other part which goes out is when you wash the stuff again. Don't get any water into your engine. Don't wash the engine down. You cannot cover the stuff up. This will go everywhere, and this is what this looks like it when you have a engine which was washed, so it looked nice. It basically ruined the whole thing, and that was most likely why they took the alternator out. And then they said, well, it's still working. Yeah, it does, but it is not working well. This is basically what you get. And I guess Bosch, for the better part now, is for these ones here, what they call premium. You got the Chinese bearings in there, and you have a no-name brand regulator. This one here, and a no-name brand rectifier assembly. The expensive parts are cheapened down, and that's how they sell them new for what, $150 or something like this. I've seen them, and that's what you get. And like I said, is this one did not have the wood-off key in it, which could have caused a whole different set of problems. But this thing has been put into the car, washed for showroom condition. So the engine was sparking clean, and then the guy bought it, and then the car stopped working because they didn't fix anything. Washing the engine will not fix your engine. It will rather make everything worse on those engines. And then the car probably sat for quite some time, and then it went to the junkyard. It went to the car heaven, I guess. Well, anyway, part 1 of the alternator rebuild. Part 2, Martin, if he lets us film it, the machining of the anchor contacts here, of the brush contacts. And then part 3 would be the reassembly and testing of it. You have a great day.